And before I start, I would also like to acknowledge a lifetime partner and also our organization partner, Jin Kim, who is my husband, but also former executive director for KCCD. Jin, would you want to stand here? We didn't choose divorce, we didn't choose murder, we chose a happy exit.
As did I, and I want to introduce my life partner of 40 years, Jeffrey Cowan.
But going back to your question, I would like to start off with telling a story from the Bible. Currently, this is a time of great economic crisis, and there is an appearance of extreme scarcity and lack of abundance. And that situation actually happened not just today, but actually across history and during also time of Jesus. And there was 5,000 people who were following Jesus, very hungry. And the disciples, the leaders, looked at that situation and found an easy way out. They looked and they said, you know what, let's pass the buck and say, let Jesus, they're trying to be responsible leaders. They came and they said, we have a solution, let's send those people away. They sounded very caring too. And these people are hungry, let's send them away. But, in that situation, there was one little boy who was not afraid, who identified what he had, 5 loaves and 2 fish, and brought it to the leader, the right leader. And those disciples then brought it to Jesus, who was able to bless it and then have it shared. And an amazing thing happened, and that is that all the people were fed, and there was a lot left over. And I think, during this current economic crisis, a formula that's missing is really looking at and identifying and recognizing the gifts that exist in each of the communities. And so in that way, one community that is often overlooked, actually two communities that are often overlooked, is the faith community, as well as, I think, the new Americans. And so our organization looks at that intersection and identify what are the gifts that they bring to the table and to the community. For the Korean American community, 75% of our community is connected with the church. And a funny thing happens, only 20% of South Koreans are Christians. As soon as they get on that plane and come to America, they suddenly become a Christian. And the reason why? Koreans have the second highest language barrier across the country of any ethnicity group. And because of that language barrier, traditional services are not accessible to them. And they hear that if they go to church, they will be able to get their help. And that is true. The Korean churches play a very vital role in helping the most vulnerable members of our society, first within the walls of the church with the newly arrived immigrants, and even for the long-time immigrants, the language barrier, and in many ways our community and our society do not welcome them as they should. And so the church plays a vital role. They also play a very vital role in helping the people around, outside the walls of the church. From the homeless, I visited a homeless agency, and the people on the street, the homeless folks, knew some of the Korean churches by name. Youngnuk and all these other churches, they're not easy to pronounce. But the fact that these individuals know them by name indicates their presence in that community, good or bad. Whether they do it the right way or they do it the wrong way, they're there and their commitment is there. And then most interesting is that they're also helping the most economically challenged individuals across the world. A survey was done by Cal State professor, Professor Yu, and he surveyed 156 churches, Korean churches in Southern California. There's 4,000 across the country, 1,500 in Southern California. Of the 153 or 156 that participated, one of the questions was, where do you support missionaries in the world? Would you believe they supported missionaries in 86 countries? And when they support missionaries, not only are they sending money, but actually they send teams of people to those countries to dig wells, build hospitals, build schools, help create jobs, and really transform their lives. And so I was very curious, where do they support? What countries? What continents? Would you believe a third were in Africa, a third were in Latin American countries, and the remaining one-third, the top country was in China. Now, during this economic challenging time, we're also living in a global economy. We live in a state that has the most minority population of any state in the country. We're also the state has the most languages and most native language spoken at home. That could be perceived as a weakness, the language barrier. But if you turn that around and say, we're in a global economy, and the assets and the resources that exist in our state to connect to all these countries across the world, that's an amazing resource and asset. And so our organization is here, and we've been doing this for almost 10 years. March will be our 10th anniversary, praise the Lord. We've been utilizing the assets and resources that exist in our community, identifying the strengths to be able to share with the world what kind of gifts and services that we could bring to the table. I'm happy to say that with the partnerships of the churches, but in addition to, with over 200 partners ranging from the White House, Fortune 500 companies, to various foundations, government entities, we've been able to do a lot to serve not just the local folks, but the greater community. To date, we've saved over $82 million in mortgages from going to foreclosure. We've helped in families with over $1.4 million in down payment assistance so they could become homeowners. We've trained a lot of organizations and nonprofit leaders in terms of how to navigate the system. In closing, I'd like to just share a joke. There were three folks who decided they wanted to go fishing. So they got onto a boat and went across, on the lake. And then the first guy realized that he had left his fishing pole, on shore. So he suddenly gets up, climbs over the boat, and then starts walking across the water. Goes to shore, picks up the pole, walks back across the water, gets in the boat. And then the second guy goes, gosh, I forgot my bait. So again, he gets up, gets out of the boat, walks across the water, gets his bait, walks right across the water again, gets in the boat. So the third guy, he actually did not forget anything, but he thought, shoot, if they could do it, I could do it. So he gets up, walks over the boat, and then he sinks. And those two individuals go, should we have told him where the stepping stones were? I'm very appreciative of the Southern California Leadership Network because I believe they're one organization that is teaching organizations and leaders where the stepping stones are. But I think there is much work to be done here in Southern California. As mentioned before, with all the rich assets and resources, I didn't get to mention that the Korean mega churches, their annual offering until the recent crisis, 2008, their annual offering, the top 5 mega churches had $15 million of annual offering. Their churches, their membership is 1,000 to 8,000 folks that show up on Sunday morning. The top 5 churches, in terms of their construction budget, was over $140 million. You multiply that over 4,000 churches. And yet, because of the language barrier, most people don't know about the great work and the resources that exist in our community. And I think that is not just unique to the Korean faith community, but is across all communities here in Southern California. If there are ways, organizations that could provide capacity building and navigating the system so that the stepping stones can be very visible, and there are leaders and mentors and organizations who can invest in that, what a new day, what a new city, what a new region Southern California will be. Thank you.